Welcome everybody to the Thursday edition, last show of the year of the Not Your Average Investor Show. I'm your host, Pablo Gonzalez. And with me today is a guy that I've admired from afar from a long time, right? Like everybody here knows we value community here and surrounding yourself with great real estate minds and investors. And today we have the president and founder of DLP Capital, who is a company that, like, I see it kind of like a kindred spirit of JWB, believes very much in core values and community and building social good into what they do while creating ways to generate wealth and retire and create passive income for folks. Author of a couple of books as well that I just found out about. But Don Wenner, welcome to the show, my friend.
Well, thank you. Pleasure to be here for sure.
It is great to finally have you on, man. I know that you guys are doing really big things with JWB in downtown, and you've gone all in on Jacksonville, and that's what this show is about. We're going to talk about where the big money's coming from, right? Like you guys are are like the big money partner that's pulled in this big fund. Why you're coming to Jacksonville, what you see in this area, how you position it to your investors, and kind of like how it all overlaps. But for right now, I want to welcome our community. I want to invite you to our Not Your Average Investor Summit that's happening on February 16th and 17th. We have teased it a bunch on the show already. We already have the tickets flying off the shelves. I think we haven't still promoted it to the list. We haven't done any kind of like push from the team. We already have over 25 people committed, and it's going to be a lot of fun here in Jacksonville. February 16th and 17th, you're going to understand, you're going to come, get to meet the JWB team, get some programming, meet each other, and see what's going on in downtown and all the things that Don and I are going to talk about today. But we have a little tradition here, which we like to kick things off with. And one of the big things is that if you come to the tour, you're going to get to meet all the people that are a part of the roll call. You ready for the roll call, Don?
Ready.
All right, man. Kicking us off is Drew Barnhill, the ringmaster of the Not Your Average Investor Show community. Drew Barnhill, we got the fairy godmother of the Not Your Average Investor Show community, Jen Filzen, saying hello from lovely Monterey, California. We got our usual leadoff hitter batting third today, John Henning, saying hello. We got the Shawman, Nadeem Shah from the West Coast, wishing everybody a good morning out there. We got the early bird in the house from Columbus, Ohio, Dean Curry. We got Leo Faraganan, from the Bay Area, California, saying hello. We got our favorite name to pronounce here, Aaron O'Neill. Into the lights, Aaron steps in. Good to have you, Aaron. We got Cody Adams, our community manager, the mama bear of the marketing team out here. Wishing everybody a happy Thursday. If you need anything, check in with her in the chat. We got the mountain man, Billy Green from the way frosty, chilly mountains of Colorado. Good to have you, Bill, in the house. John Canoy checking in over here saying hi, Nadeem. He must know John. I think that's a new name. John, good to have you in here. Hope you make it a habit hanging out with us. We got the Maven from the mountains of Denver, Leslie Wilson checking in. Good to have you as always, Leslie. Looking forward to seeing you in February. Who else? Ruben Robles checking in from Philly. Good to have you, Ruben. I believe that that's a new name. Hope you make it a habit to hang out with us. Would love to know what brings you here. John, you and Ruben would love to know what brings you here for the first time. And Ria Patil also checking in. Ria, good to have you. That's another new name. We love having new names here. We got the first family in the house, Ken and Carolyn Moline, the patriarch and matriarch. We salute you. And I feel like that's a lot of roll call without Greg next to me. And I want to get into conversation with Don over here. But Don, we have a little bit of breaking news for the community, and that is that interest rates have dropped again for the first time in 6 months. Interest rates are under 6% for those of you that are locking in a property with JWB, buying a turnkey property. The JWB interest rate right now that is being offered on new properties or, remodel, anybody that's acquiring something new to their portfolio, is 5.75%. Again, first time in under 6 months. That means as an investor, increased cash flow, increased ROI. And the best part is that JWB is still offering their 5K incentive before end of year. So if there is ever a reason to get in right now, it's an interesting time to go to chatwithjwb.com, hop on a call, get that conversation going. Don, are you guys, we talked about this a little bit, right? Interest rates going down and stuff like that. Are you guys seeing any specific action around that stuff? Or you got any thoughts about the interest rates going down?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing we've seen so far, obviously, it's been a very short amount of time, kind of since this direction's happened. But what we've seen is, and this is what we've been expecting and thinking for a while, is as soon as rates start coming down, or equally as important maybe, is that once the belief is in the market that rates are going to come down, that's what's going to get a lot of the money that's been sitting on the sidelines, back into the market. There's, I don't have the stats in front of me, but trillions of dollars sitting on the sidelines right now
Mhm.
waiting to invest, and everyone's realized that housing is one of the most solid places to deploy money. So as rates come down, more confidence comes to the market, people start bringing money back to the market, which of course drives everything, drives value. And when you get to the point where you can start hitting, close to positive cash flow with day one, I mean, I think in JWB that's been normal, but I think it's really great for the market. So seeing a lot of confidence, a lot of excitement coming into the market, which is exciting.
That's awesome. Yeah, we've been talking about it a while now, right? This idea that as soon as interest rates start coming down, money starts coming in, which means demand goes up, which means prices start to go up, and it starts driving up that ROI. For me, on a personal level, my wife and I put an offer in on a duplex that we plan to live in one and rent the other on Sunday. And this thing had been on the market for 6 months, and we found ourselves this week competing with another offer, right? So like just on a small kind of like data point, there's already people making moves, me and whoever else was trying to get it included. But luckily we got the offer accepted yesterday. So we're hoping that it's
Congrats.
it's a good time. Yeah, yeah. Thanks, man. Buying something in Mayport. Awesome, man. I would love to, I intro DLP from my perspective, right? Like I've seen you all as this group that has built a really, really impressive operation. You guys are clearly core values focused, community driven. I would love for you to kind of describe it in your own words of how you tell people, when people ask you what is DLP Capital and what are y'all doing, how do you describe it?
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. Pleasure being here. So, best way I would describe DLP Capital is we invest in building thriving communities, and that's, kind of the short version of our purpose statement. The bigger version is Dream, Live, Prosper, which is what the initials DLP stands for, passionately making an extraordinary impact by building thriving communities. So for us, it's all about communities. Specifically, what we do is we invest in attainable housing for working families. And we do that as a developer, we do that as an operator, we do that as an equity partner to groups like JWB, we do that as a lender. And then we're a fully vertically integrated organization, and that not only is helpful for us as a sponsor, but it's helpful for us as partner, lender, et cetera, to other sponsors and operators where we can try to pour in and provide resources and support. We're, as you said, a very value-driven organization, purpose-driven, and extremely disciplined organization, similar to JWB. And we'll always be able to hopefully say this: we're a year ahead of JWB, and that we're 11 years in a row on the Inc. 5000 fastest growing company list. Alex and JWB are at 10 years, and which is, we're two companies out of, I don't know, 10 in America that can say they've done that, which requires, relentless execution and discipline and maintaining that kind of pace of growth year over year over year over year. And so that's what we do, and live here in St. Augustine. I've been friends with Alex, and we're running a similar business model to JWB back, when kind of through the down to the market and such. But I was in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania at the time, and Alex and I, we were actually we were the two largest, I don't even he remembers this, we were the two largest capital raises that Realty Shares, a crowdfunding platform, had ever done back in the day. And that's how we connected. We connected
Hmm.
because we were the two big sponsors they were raising money for. And I came down and flew down to Jacksonville, met with Alex way before I ever even considered moving here. And we built our friendship then over the years, and have become a significant capital provider, as we believe here in Jacksonville and St. Augustine. That's what we're going to be talking about, but which ties in, I have 11, 10, and 2-year-old kids, boys. And when my two older ones were 2 and 3, we decided, where do we want to raise our kids? Where do we want to live? And we were looking for two things. Where do we want to raise our family? Where do we want them to be coming back to? Where do we want to think we're gonna have the best quality of life? And then where is there the best investment business opportunity? And both of those factors, which are, there's a reason why they're connected, right? Led us right here to Northeast Florida. And it's been one of the greatest decisions we've ever made.
A lot to unpack there, man. That's a great story. And everything everything that you talk about there is things that a lot of common topics here, right? Of like growth and community and admiration for this area in general. And we're going to get into kind of like you moving down here and putting a bunch of chips into the Northeast Florida market. But you said something super interesting. You and Alex met because you got both put on this like a prestigious list of doing things. Put put me in that connection, man. Like how does when two young, sharp real estate like magnates get put on like a similar initiative together? Did you reach out to him and say, hey, I want to meet you, I'm going to come down here? Did he reach out to you and say, I see what you guys are doing, let me show you Northeast Florida? How did that happen?
I think, and I haven't thought about any of this in many, many years. So
Yeah.
actually, now that I'm thinking backwards, we had a few interesting things that happened early on. So I don't remember which one triggered it, but back again 11, 12 years ago, I guess it was probably now, I don't know exactly, 10, 11 years ago, Realty Shares was pursuing us, which I don't know how many of you guys remember that platform. And actually, good friends of ours, our largest kind of sponsor partner, a group called Reef Holdings out of Dallas, Texas. They actually bought the Realty Shares platform a few years ago. But back in the day, it was the first kind of real estate crowdfunding platform. And they were mainly doing individual deals, and they decided, hey, we're going to start doing funds or portfolio of deals. And they did a deal with JWB, and they raised JWB like $2 million or something like that. And they were pitching us to do the same. And I said, well, put me in touch with a reference. And they put me in touch with Alex. And then right around that same time, we were a borrower of a lender, Genesis Capital, and they were also working with Alex and JWB, and between those two connection points, we got connected because we were using similar capital providers, and so I reached out for kind of a reference, and we kind of hit it off, and at some point soon after, I flew down. And then a couple years after that, we had the Inc. 5000 connection along the way. When I think back when we first met, he was on for like the first year and I was on for the second year or something. And we've both stayed on the list. But another fun connection we have. So maybe 5 years ago, we were both nominated for EY Entrepreneur of the Year.
Sure. Yeah.
And so we both made it. We had to fly in, I forget where, for interviews. I think it was Miami, and we made it to the finalists. So it was Alex, myself, and one other guy who made it. For the other guy ran a restaurant business. I'll leave nameless. And anyway, so we're the finalists with the day of the awards, and we both lose to this restaurateur. And we determined that real estate just wasn't that cool, I guess. But both ended up winning it later. But it was another cool, fun connection that we were literally, finalists against each other in that for that award. But yeah, so lots of fun connections that led us to having a financial and business relationship over the last many years.
That's so fascinating to me, man. Like I'm always fascinated with how the impact of the network that you build and how you build it. And that's almost like you could write a movie about that, right? Like I see the two guys building their businesses, meeting in different places, quasi competitors, extending the olive branch. And now, fast forward the 11, 12 years, and you guys are really, really collaborating to change the face of a big American city, which feels really cool. Did you move? You mentioned also that you moved from the Northeast down to Florida to St. Augustine. Did you move your family here first and then decide to start working on these big downtown, Jacksonville things, or did you move your family down here to work on these kinds of projects?
One of my favorite books is a book called Drive by Daniel Pink. And in that book, this short kind of note of the book is, he says that we all make decisions off emotions and then we back them up with logic. And so the logical reason I moved here was in 2014, 2015, Jacksonville was arguably the most undervalued market in America. It was always sort of the stepchild of Florida. And it was great value opportunities for value add multifamily, which is what we were growing our business focused on at the time. And so that was the kind of logical reason from a business standpoint. But really, it's just we evaluated, went to a lot of places, and just decided this is where we wanted to raise our kids. And so that's why we moved to St. Augustine and started buying in Jacksonville and Daytona, Orlando and such. And kind of then we expanded throughout the Sun Belt and such. But when I came down here, there was no business yet here. We weren't doing any investing on large scale here yet. We bought some existing apartment communities. I had no employees here when I moved here. And then steadily, some of our senior leaders moved down, some of our other team. And then mostly everybody we've hired here, which has been exciting and an interesting part of thinking about investing here is for our business, and finding incredible talent who has the background and skills necessary for the jobs we've hired for. There isn't enough talent pool here historically. But what I found to be amazing is that, and this was very different when I lived in Pennsylvania, that when somebody, say they live in New York or Atlanta or Denver or Miami or Palm Beach or Dallas, those are common places where the people with the talent we're looking for live today. When we fly them into Jacksonville, and they come and see the area, and they come to our offices, and they come and spend a weekend, we try to get them to spend as much time here as we can. They always want to move here, and they, like so many other people, have realized what a great place, not just for the economic reasons, but just great quality of life, great weather, beaches, etc. And so almost everybody we've hired, we have 140, 50 team members here. Almost all of them have moved here from somewhere else for the opportunity. And even when people leave us for a variety of reasons, they never leave the area. They stay, and because they fall in love with the same reasons that we have.
That makes a lot of sense, man. It's funny because I'm one of these data points of people that moved up from Miami 5 years ago, right? Like folks that are just coming to the area. And I remember when I was moving here, I moved here, I was telling you before, right? I've been on this like journey of community creation for business development, and I left my job down there where I was doing it with an opportunity to prove it at a different scale in a place that I wasn't from, with a tech startup here in the local ecosystem. And I remember thinking to myself that I was going to come up here, my quality of life was going to go up, my cost of living was going to go down, and I would pay a tax in like economic opportunity and kind of like that whole talent thing, and maybe even like the network that I got to surround myself with, because I had a wonderful network in Miami. And what I have found is that this place has exceeded my expectations in everything, right? Like the quality of people that come here, they stay and they see it, and the quality of life might be the magnet, but people do come here and stay because they find the economic opportunity because it's growing. And because of that, you have this network of folks that continues to level up and stuff like that. So I find that to be a very likely story of how easy it must be to recruit people here for talent.
Yeah, it's been amazing, and yeah, he nailed it on the head, and that's why we're investing heavily here, and it's why we believe in it. And I can't see any future anyway that Jacksonville does not continue to explode as a magnet for companies, for jobs, for population growth. It's got every element any city could want to have, and it's going to continue to explode. There's no reason that Jacksonville is not a bigger market than Orlando. There's no reason it's not as a bigger market, stronger market than Tampa. And I've lived in Tampa as well. I mean, it's got everything that any other, Southeast market has, and more.
Let's talk about that, right? So, we just touched on like what brought you here personally, touched on what brought your company here. Now we're talking about investing here. What you're saying, it has all these things that these other markets have, and it's undervalued. What are the things? What are the things that you look for in a market that you're saying that this place has it and people aren't recognizing yet?
Well, and when I say it has everything, I'm taking into account that it has what, JWB and we're about to do, which is revitalize the downtown. Right now, that's the only thing it doesn't have is a vibrant downtown. But we have, beaches. We've got both, ocean and great, intercoastal water. We've got phenomenal weather, best weather in Florida, in my opinion, by far. I talked to a guy today, a guy who runs the second largest private equity firm in the world. And he told me, which I didn't know when I had a long story why I talked to him this morning, but so yeah, I have a condo in St. Augustine, and I tell you, as we said to me, I've lived around the world and travel all the time. He said, there's no beaches I love better than right there. It's the best in the world. And, we've got a great port. We've got a lot of reasons why, there'd be incredible job growth. We've got, military base. We have, all the kind of elements. We've got great healthcare and continuing to grow and improve. We've got major sports in the Jaguars, who 2 or 3 weeks ago I was more confident in, but are still looking good. You get access to get to other major markets easily, like Orlando as an example. Got a great airport, but we have more churches per mile in this area of the country than anywhere else in America. It's or a place where where it couldn't be better place to raise a family. I'm a little biased to St. John County over Duval today, but some of the work that we're gonna do will change that. And what make St. John County has that Duval doesn't yet have is incredible schools, and that's a
Mm.
big driver. But that's still ties into the Duval growth because if schools are a top priority and you can't find, which there are some great private schools in Duval, well, then you go 20 minutes down the road and go to the schools in St. John County and commute in, right? And that's why, the biggest reason why St. John's exploding because the schools are so much better than everywhere else in Florida. It's not even close.
Yeah.
And so it's got everything you could want, incredible people, a lot to do, lot less traffic than everywhere else in Florida, which is a big deal to me. Other than downtown St. Augustine that I love, rarely deal with significant traffic. The only thing we're missing is a vibrant downtown that draws people in and has a lot to do, and that's a big part of course, what we're doing here together. And I think the great thing is when you have a vibrant downtown, not only is it going to do great things for the downtown, not only is that gonna do a lot for businesses coming into town and companies coming there and certainly people able to live there and the downtown completely transformed. But that the ripple effect that has, and there's so much studies that you look at this that it has to the suburbs and all the surrounding area. It's a all ships rise kind of situation. When you have a vibrant downtown, everything will benefit, everything will improve when you have that.
Man, you hit on so many things that we talk about a lot here, right? Like so for me, the pitch of when I first got to Jacksonville and immediately started evangelizing Jacksonville to all like my Miami buddies, I kept looking around and thinking, I lived in Huntington Beach, California in like the early 2000s, and I'm like, this feels like Orange County, California 40 years ago, right? Like it has all the things you said, these wonderful beaches, these great like attachment to other areas and an amazing weather and a really high quality lifestyle. And that's that emotional sale, right? Like that's that emotional why you want to move here. But then you started talking about the future of this stuff and kind of like the demographics and the things that are coming that make investors want to put their money here. This idea that it's a very stable economy and it has logistics and fintech and healthcare tech and these different things that make it thrive. And yet it doesn't have this like vibrant downtown yet. It doesn't have that like urban core that works as this like nuclear reactor that attracts jobs and attracts all these other things that have already found their way here. And that is a giant, giant opportunity. So I wonder, can you hit on, I know that I'm notorious for like messing up dot figures here, right? Like I'm not the dollars guy, but we've talked about this idea that you've put together, was it a $200 million fund, $250 million fund? Can you talk me through that?
Yeah, happy to. So DLP, we have a little over $5 billion in assets under management. Again, headquartered right here in St. Augustine, Florida, which I'm talking to you from now. We have our capital base is direct relationships with high net worth, ultra high net worth families. We have 2,850 families invested in our funds. A few hundred of those are Northeast Florida families, but they're all over the country. These are, business owners. These are doctors, attorneys, engineers, CPAs, et cetera. And then we work with a number of large, wealth management firms and family offices and endowments and such as well. But it's mainly, deep relationships we build with direct families. We call them faith-centered wealth creators. Generally first generation wealth creators. People work really, really hard to build their wealth, and they invest that money with us with expectations that we're going to protect that money. We're going to generate solid double-digit returns, regular distributions, and an element of liquidity. And so one of those funds, we run five total funds right now, four that are open for investment. And one of those funds is called the Building Community Fund, which is a $2 billion fund focused on investing equity into building new thriving communities. And that's the fund that's investing in downtown Jacksonville in partnership with JWB. That fund also is invested in a couple other properties in the suburbs, I'll call it, of Jacksonville with JWB. We also partner with some of the other big developers in the area. And then we have other funds that invest as a lender as well alongside the equity, which we all know the debt is always the largest part of the capital stack. And so, today the biggest way we've invested in downtown from a dollar standpoint is we're the lender on most of the properties we own in downtown as well. and providing the acquisition, the development, and some of the construction financing to build these brand new apartment buildings and grocers and so forth that we'll be building here over this first phase of the project.
Very cool, man. Very cool. Can you give me, when you're telling people about the downtown investment, right? Like what is the pitch? Are you guys just I get the sense that, like you said, ultra high net worth families, that you have like a community built around, people trust you with their money, right? Like implicitly, it sounds like very similar to kind of like the community that we have here. When you're describing the stuff that you're doing in downtown, for someone that hasn't heard of it, a lot of us are familiar with it, but like, what is your usual description of like the Proceed District and what you're doing down there?
Yeah, well, I'll start and just give the full, I guess I'll call it transparent answer to that question, which is because of the way we raise our capital and the deep trust we've built with the families who invest with us. To give you an idea, we have less than a 1.5% redemption annually, which means when somebody invests with us on average, statistically, they'll be invested with us for 75 years. 70% of our capital every year is existing investors adding more money with us. So most of the people in the building community fund that's investing downtown were already investors with us before we launched that fund 2 years ago, the majority of them. And what they expect from us is, number one, that we're impact investors and that we're going to make a positive impact through building thriving communities. We're going to provide housing that is and will be affordable for working families. We're going to have a positive impact, not just financially in the residents who live in our properties, but we're going to pour into them in addition to the foundation of safe, attainable housing. And then that we're going to support the investor's family by providing them consistent, reliable returns, taking away their worry and stress of the volatility of the market, and then pouring into the families that invest with us in another way. So we just did a big event. Alex and Brian, our CEO of Gateway Jacks, came to the event, and we had hundreds of our investors there, 450, 500 people there, and we had Tim Tebow as one of our speakers, and a lot of awesome speakers, and poured into them, focused on helping them build extraordinary families, legacies, and live. And so that's what people are investing in with DLP above and beyond any specific property. So we're not out there raising money just into downtown. The downtown is going to be a big part of the fund because it's going to be all said and done, debt and equity, a couple $1 billion. But by the time we have downtown fully built out, that fund will probably be $5 or $10 billion. So it's not the only thing we're doing in there. But with that said, 80% of all of our development, and right now, to give you an idea, next year we'll be a top 5 developer in America in terms of our development pipeline. And 80% of our development is in Florida, and 80% of that 80% is in Northeast Florida. So, Northeast Florida makes up 60% of everything we're doing, and across the whole country, right? It's a huge portion of it. So we're regularly selling on a lot of things we've talked about on why we believe so much in Northeast Florida. And that's why we moved our company here. It's why I moved my family here. That's why we're actively investing in doing the downtown project, doing suburban, 2, 3, 4-story multifamily, doing build for rent, doing ground up developments for sale, doing townhome developments, doing large RV, outdoor hospitality resorts, and everything in between throughout Northeast Florida.
Interesting. So I guess I never asked this, but you say ultra high net worth family. Do you guys have like a minimum investment to invest with you guys?
Depends a couple factors, but 100 to $200,000 is the short story as the minimum, and average has around $1 million with us.
Okay, cool. Yeah, yeah. So that's why we talk about this idea of like the big money coming to Jacksonville, and you essentially represent, bigger money investors that are putting in $1 million, minimum 100 to 200,000, all accredited investors and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So, we have some overlapping population, but you guys are generally dealing with higher net worth individuals than the average person, obviously. And they are putting the money into this, like, they're putting their money and trust in you guys to grow it for 75 years and multi-generationally. Talk to me specifically about the downtown project, right? Like this, we've talked about the Proceed District in the past on the show. I think it's a good kind of refresher to hit on when you're telling your wife about it. What are you telling her we're doing in downtown Jacksonville?
Yeah, it's pretty exciting what we're doing there, and she has the benefit, and I was we the benefit of seeing the master planning process we've been going through, which is just awesome to see. So we had a second home in Tampa, 10 years ago or so for 4 or 5 years. And so I saw Water Street in Tampa. I used to hang out there quite a bit, lived, 10 minutes from there. And so going there when we first got involved with Alex in downtown, which came with him pitching me to invest a few $1 million as a high net worth individual into his, a downtown fund. That's how it started. He was pitching me to be a few $1 million kind of passive investor into his fund. And as I started digging into it, I said, I'm, thinking quite a bit bigger, Alex. And, we committed to doing 2/3 of the capital. So, but part of the process, we flew down to Tampa with Brian, who's our CEO of Gateway Jacks, which is the development company Alex and I, or JWB and I own together. And we flew down to Water Street. And I hadn't been there in 4 or 5 years and saw the transformation that happened on Water Street and saw the master planning that went on there and how they completely transformed that into a vibrant place where people want to live and want to play, and where you're going to attract young people to come, which then become, those who start families and stay in the area, and those who then start businesses. And it was very easy to see what happened there, that we have an even bigger canvas to do in Jacksonville, and to see what that's going to look like there. It was a great way to see it firsthand. And then going through the process of hiring basically the same planning team that did that project come in and help us design what we're going to do in the Pearl District. It was easy to start visualizing that and start seeing how amazing that's going to be, and to see what it's going to be like when you got a Publix type anchor downtown, right? You got vibrant, awesome, incredible restaurants and bars and breweries and beer gardens, and you have an activated water area, and you have, really cool place to live, and rooftop hangout areas. And you can start seeing what that's going to feel like, and some of the great work that's already happening. And that's the other cool thing that we haven't really talked about, is we've got a city that is supporting this, right? They've provided us already $100 million in support, and who are pro business, pro development, providing the incentives to really make these projects work. And they've already started a number of really cool projects and committed a lot of money to the infrastructure that's needed to support, private developers like us. And so, yeah, so it's exciting. And the last thing I'll kind of throw out in terms of Pearl Street, that I think it's kind of part why we picked Pearl Street, not the real reason, but it doesn't hurt, is, Brian and I, and I think some other people involved as well, but Brian and I both, when we started talking about it, both have spent a decent amount of time out in Boulder. And if you ever been out in Boulder on Pearl Street in Boulder, it is awesome. I think it's the best downtown kind of walkable street in the country. It's my favorite, and it's just awesome. So that tie-in of it being the Pearl District is pretty cool. But being able to go to places like there, and to give you an idea, I was telling you this before this, I virtual school my kids, and we have a teacher who travels with us, and it gives a lot of flexibility. So we've been to 37 US cities this year, 4 or 5 different countries, et cetera. And so we've been this year in Jackson Hole, we've been to Boulder, we've been, to Whitefish, we've been to La Jolla, we've been to, to all over San Diego, we've been in Austin, we've been in Dallas, we've been in Atlanta, we've been in Miami, we've been in Palm Beach, we've been, to all these different places with great downtowns, right? And so being able to see these different awesome downtowns, it helps you be able to visualize what Jacksonville is going to be and what a transformation that's going to make to the broader area.
Man, it's so, you talk about it very casually, but the epicness of what you guys are doing and the scale at which you're working at is truly, it's so unique that I feel like I have to kind of like dumb it down and explain it for folks. Basically Don just said that he's looking at a city like a canvas and looking at other cities and trying to figure out in their downtowns what works for them, what is super livable, what you can somewhat, steal like an artist, right? Like copy, implement, and do it in a city. Then you and your team and JWB formed a company together that went out and hired a team that has done this at another city at this scale level, brought them to Jacksonville, and you're now essentially building a neighborhood all at once. And it is a downtown urban neighborhood that includes mixed use development, residential, commercial, public spaces, hospitality, a hotel, like restaurants and shops, and is creating a neighborhood scale experience from the ground up.
Oh, and
And
by the way, UF's coming.
oh, yeah. Yeah, and went out and recruited the what like the what Wall Street Journal has called the top public institution in the country to build a graduate program around AI and fintech and healthcare tech in order to feed the talent level. It's such an alien thing to say that one can do this because it needs such a confluence of things, right? Like it needs a city that is ready for it, that has a public sector that is willing to support it at the level that it needs to support, because it's such a long bet for the private sector to do, that it needs the public sector to buy in. It needs the space to do it in. It needs an economy that can support this thing. And then it needs this like very particular set of folks that have the unique combination of capital, skill set, and core values of like that can align on this vision to create this like unique place. I find it incredible, man. Has in you guys's research, has anybody done something like this? Like has anybody been able to like show up to a downtown and be like, all right, we're going to build a whole neighborhood inside of a downtown and do this, copying all these different things and create this like, I don't know. It sounds like the Power Rangers all coming together to create this like big thing. Is there a comparison to like what you guys are doing?
Yeah, it's a cool way to think about it. And I'll kind of start saying is no, I don't think so, and I don't think we all the press that came out about this, and my team did a lot of the press kind of over the kind of announcement of this a couple months ago, and so they've been tracking a lot of this, and it's been something like we've been picked up on 400 and some news outlets, national news, magazines. I mean, huge press, right? And because we haven't even announced the full project yet, we really only announced really the first districts. If we announce the full kind of scope of what we own and what we're doing, it would easily be the largest revitalization of a city in U.S. history. And to your point, yeah, it needs so many elements to happen to pull something like that, right? You need the physical real estate and place to do it, and you need a market that has kind of the opportunity, but has the growing population and job growth and the economic elements and ingredients to drive it. You need, great people in the public sector who are in support of it and provide funding and infrastructure. You need a developer, which is, I don't take the credit for this, Alex, JWB, who has the vision and local knowledge and relationships and ability to go, because this was going, parcel by parcel over years to acquire all this land. You need world-class development and construction talent and expertise and consultants. I mean, it needs a lot of elements. And then, oh yeah, by the way, money. But for this to happen, to your point, so it's pretty awesome. But no, as far as I know, there hasn't been something done at this scale. And the cool thing though, and I think the important note is, one of the things that I love about Jacksonville as a whole is, Alex isn't the only, and JWB is by far not the only young, developer or real estate investor doing awesome things, right? There's so many other ones, and a lot of them were all friends way before I ever came to town per se, and I've been able to become, friends with it. But there's so many great, real estate investors, developers living here in Jacksonville, younger guys and gals doing awesome, incredible things. And I think that's the cool thing to think about is, even though, yeah, what we do at Gateway, JWB and DLP, maybe it'll end up, maybe it's $2 billion, it ends up being, maybe it's 3 billion, but what doesn't really matter in the respect that the overall scope of what's going to happen in downtown is going to be 3, 4, 5, 10 times bigger than what we do as developers. And it's kind of, again, all tides rise situation where what we want to do is, by making this kind of significant investment into downtown and getting these projects going, is inspire and give confidence to other developers, not just in downtown, in the overall market as well, but certainly in downtown, to buy up other properties near us and work with us and jump into the first mover work that we've done and the millions of dollars in planning that we've done, and do projects alongside us. We have no ambition or desire. Alex might have a little more ambition and desire on this than I do, but I have no ambition or desire that we need to be the developer on everything. We want to work with other great developers and get this started and get other people coming alongside us and doing awesome things with us.
So cool, man. I honestly can't believe that it's the first time I've ever asked if it's the only one of its kind. But yeah, the largest neighborhood development in US history is something that, if it's not true, it definitely has a claim to say that, like, and that is, I I would be doing you all a disservice to not say that's what we're going to go see in February 16th, 17th in the Not Your Average Investor Summit, right? Like, you're going to get to see a city being built in a very, very unique way. So if you want to see this thing, it's there's very few times, I think, in history where you can see the before and after of history and be conscious that you're watching the before, as it happens. And I pinch myself all the time to think like, man, I feel very lucky to be in this seat, to get to be like the mouthpiece of this thing from the JWB standpoint, but to get to see this thing, I think is truly special. So yeah.
And Paulo, it is awesome. So, I got to be there, myself and Alex and Brian, did the kind of big sort of announcement, groundbreaking ceremony a
True.
couple months ago, and we did
Yeah.
a big ordeal, and we went and did kind of probably similar to what you're going to do in this tour, and had all these really cool iPads where you could really see what the landscape's going to look like. And then a few weeks ago, we took some buses from our event in Ponte Vedra, and Brian and Alex led the way of touring about, I don't know exactly how many, there were 80, 100 of our investors through the downtown as well. And I just heard such rave reviews. And many of them were people who really never spent any time in Jacksonville, didn't really know it that well, or hadn't been there in 10 years or whatever, and just blown away to see, like you said, what it looks like today and what
Mhm.
it's about to be transformed into. It's an awesome experience.
Yeah, and we're doing that too, right? We're gonna have the iPads and be able to like do the 3D vision, the I don't know, it's 3D vision, future vision, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And Don, I know that people are saying, "Are you going to come to this thing?" I know that we're talking to you. You're working out with your schedule. See if you can swing by.
Yeah. My
Um,
plan is to be there. Yes.
okay, cool. Wow, there you go. You said it. Your plan is to be there. That's awesome. I want to ask you one last thing, and then I want to get into some Q&A. We got some good questions for you here. You mentioned this whole like something that I think was very apparent to me, and it's that the real estate community here really is special. Like, I remember coming here, just being a networker. I got into the real estate community because it was just the best place to meet great people, and that there's all these other folks. And I'm curious to just ask this idea of the Pearl District and these other investments that are happening in downtown, and how you see that affecting, the workforce housing around the urban core, the residential real estate around it. I know you're in some of those projects yourself. If you can just kind of like talk about how this affects the flywheel of like real estate appreciation for the rest of us that, like me, own workforce housing around the urban core and other JWB investors.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely, and I've said it a couple of times, but I don't believe I know that a revitalized, incredible downtown that is filled with, great companies. We already are very fortunate, despite the downtown, to have so many great companies there, but this will only attract more in a place that's got vibrant, nightlife and things to do and go to, and let alone places to live. Will buoy and drive more companies here and drive more investment into the region. Will drive more, great hospitals into the area. Will drive, so much growth into the overall market that's going to, without a doubt, raise values across the entire market. It's not without a doubt is going to drive more population growth, drive more companies here, drive more people wanting to be here. Everything will benefit from a robust, booming, vibrant downtown. So hence why we have projects with groups like Corner Lot of we own 1,500-acre piece of property that we're building thousands of houses in. We have a development going right now that'll be 739 homes. We're seeing every large home builder in America desperately trying to buy lots in Jacksonville. We're doing some 50, 60, 100 home subdivisions with JWB. DLP directly is building single family detached homes, duplexes, townhomes, 3, 4 story multifamily, RV parks, you name it, throughout the St. John County, Duval County, a little bit even into Clay, a little bit up into Kingsland, out to Glen St. Mary, out to Palatka, that whole region, the hour driving distance to Jacksonville will all benefit and grow off of what's happening in downtown.
I love it. Yeah. Basically, all the good stuff that's made everything do so well is going to accelerate with all of this.
Without
And
a
I
doubt.
see it as, Like I see it as like, I like going to Vegas. I like doing a little bit of gambling. And then I like to sit at the $10 table. And sometimes I like to watch the $500 table and stuff like that. And I see this as like one of these things where the $10 table can come in and just put their chip right next to the $500 table person. Right. Cause all this stuff continues to happen. And I think it's going to do really, really well. Not that this is gambling. I think this is a very different, I'm going to stop myself there. Let's get into Q&A. You ready for that?
Right.
Derek Nelson asks, would you talk a little bit more about your plans for community bank acquisition?
Yeah, so I own a bank. It's called DLP Bank. We are headquartered in Stark, Florida, which is the poorest county in Florida. Desperately needs community banking. The bank's been doing so for a long time. On January 1st, we'll have our first location open in St. Augustine, in Plenty in St. Augustine, what it used to be the DLP headquarters. We outgrew. Will be a bank location here shortly. I absolutely expect we will have a bank branch office in downtown Jacksonville, part of this project as well, and absolutely very focused on bringing community banking, lending, small business lending, real estate development, construction lending, et cetera, to Northeast Florida. And that's the center of our kind of business model of growth of DLP Bank.
Love that. Super interesting. Denny Davis says, Denny, sorry I missed you in the roll call, buddy. You know that I value you. Checking in from Arkansas. He says, and he's coming on February 16th, 17th. He says, Don, thanks for joining us. All of this sounds incredible for the future of Jax. What do you see as the risks to your vision?
So, the biggest risks in any development of any business, of any development, certainly development of housing, the fundamental risk is simple. You run out of oxygen, and oxygen in the world of business is cash.
Hmm.
And that's, in any volatile time, right? Housing only goes one way, right? It goes up, right? Housing values only over the long term, right? They only goes up. There's not a doubt in the world of certainly any of us in real estate, but I think just about anybody that 10 years from now, housing values are going to be higher than they are today, right? 5 years from now, they're going to be higher than they are today. Are they going to be higher a year from now than they are today? Probably, but don't know, right? And the only time that people run into problems and they lose assets and risk really happens is when you run out of cash. And in volatile times, when interest rates have been higher and access to financing is harder, that's what people struggle with. They run out of cash, and then you can have a great asset. Like the way I would explain it, you could own a 200 unit property or portfolio of houses. That's great, right? There's lots of residents who want to live there. Demand is excellent. People can pay their rent, right? Rents are going up. All the fundamental things that are so important. But let's just say you ran out of cash. And now as residents move out, you can't afford to turn those apartments. Well, now all of a sudden they're vacant. And all of a sudden you can't turn them. So now all of a sudden you have a bunch of vacant properties, not because the market isn't strong, but because you couldn't afford the $3,000 or $5,000 to turn it, right? And so you run out of cash, good things can go bad quick. So that's the really critical component. That's where we're very blessed. So in that we have not only equity, but we have debt as well. We run debt funds and equity funds, and we've had a great access to capital. We've never had a week where we didn't have more capital than we had the week before. And our investors continue to support us and invest more money with us. And we've doubled our equity under management over the last 18 months and have big goals for 2024. So access to cash, and then the sister of cash is cash flow. And what allows us to do things like this project is we've got lots of great cash flowing assets and businesses that produce, the distributions that allow us to invest in ground up development projects like this.
And that's really well explained, right? That really connected the dots for me. This idea that, right, just if I was to personify this, I'm buying this like duplex with where I'm gonna live, and then I have another one next door to me. And my big risk is, I can definitely afford my mortgage plus some, but if I don't have cash coming into that side duplex, I'm gonna be in trouble as far as like, or I don't have reserves, I'm gonna be in trouble as far as maintaining that, keeping that going. It'll make me have to get rid of it. When you think of it from this neighborhood development kind of like level, same thing. You guys have what you can operate and afford right now, and having access to cash investors and cash flow makes it so that if anything changes on one side, you can adapt it, you can continue to develop it, you can continue to make it better, doesn't go vacant, you don't have to sell it, you can keep operating it. And that's why it's so important to have these like partnerships with folks like you and DLP and JWB, who have proven over the last 15 years to have returned for folks, have high trust with their investors, and that's why people continue to pour more and more of their cash into what you're doing, because they believe that what you're doing will continue to perform for them. And there's really no substitute for that, right? Like this idea of like having proven yourself to people over and over again that create this like implicit trust that allow you to work on these bigger, better things. And that's why you're able to create the, biggest development in the US, right? Like that made it pretty obvious to me. Great answer, man. All right. Billy Green's got a question here. He's the mountain man. And he's asking, how would you characterize the position of the professional who would be dedicated to dealing with the political aspects of developing? From where is that skill set derived? Interesting question, Billy.
So I don't know if I can give a great answer there, but I'll say the simple answer I say is from experience. And so we're very blessed that, we've got a development team with a lot of experience in working the public political side. And then really the biggest leader to it and related to what we're doing in downtown is Alex, who's really dedicated, the last many years of his life to building deep relationships with the political leaders, with the economic business development leaders in Jacksonville. And that means committing to being on the board. That means committing to going on the trips. That means committing to going to and raising money. When we brought UF to Jacksonville, we had to raise $50 million of private money, which Alex he probably wouldn't say it this way, but I'll say it really led the way on in getting $50 million of private money raised to go along with the $50 million City of Jacksonville committed and the $100 million that the state gave to fund or give the incentives to build for UF to come to Jacksonville, right? So that'll be the best answer I could give you on that.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. There is no substitute for experience, right? Like it is, whether it's Brian or Alex or you, the fact that you are doing things that you have been doing over and over again for the last like 16 years and been really committed to it. It's such a dynamic skill set, right? Like I remember when we had Brian on the show, I'm like, man, you're like one part consensus builder, one part bean counter, one part professional presenter. Like it's such a dynamic skill set that you can only like dial in if you've been in it, done it over and over again, because there's a lot of like in between things that you need to learn and apply, man. So I think that that's a great answer. Don, I want to get you going, man. I want to be respectful of your time. I know it's coming up on 1:30 here. I also have a surprise for the community. Greg did not want to leave without wishing everybody well wishes and a Merry Christmas. So he has a video that I'm going to share to close the call. But before we get there, can you any way that we can get in contact with you, support DLP, anything that you want to leave us with here before we sign off?
Yeah, thank you for that, and pleasure being on here. So I look forward to hopefully meeting many of you February 16th, 17th at the upcoming conference event. If you'd like to reach out to us in the meantime, dlpcapital.com is our main website. My email is don@dlpcapital.com. And then we have another website called dlpelite.com, which you can access from the website, where we give out lots of free tools and resources and access to things like are in the books that I wrote, which are centered around building companies that build communities. And so welcome you to reach out, and hope to see you live at the event in a few weeks.
Don, I appreciate you doing this, man. And more than anything, it's just really inspiring to see people that lead the way that you lead, right? Like I get into a lot of these conversations about the value of community and how to quantify it and all these things. And I think it might be a new buzzword in business and in management and stuff like that, but it's not a new leadership style, right? Like I think you look back in history and the people that have created the greatest impact have done it the way that you're doing it. And I love seeing people like you come on this show and share this vision and create win-wins for people. So thanks for doing that, man.
And to just wrap that up, Pablo, and Merry Christmas, everybody. And certainly in reference to that, my verse of my life is to who much is given, much is required, Luke 12:48. And so, I'm just utilizing the blessings that have been provided to me And it's a great thing to keep in mind here in this holiday season. Worship the Lord. We're just blessed to use the resources and the opportunities we have. I landed here in Jacksonville and built relationships with great people like Alex that have put me in the position to serve and make a big impact here together. And hope to meet many of you. And Merry Christmas.
Amen to that, man. Merry Christmas to you. I want to thank our community for showing up. You are the reason why this thing is so special. Thank you for taking an hour of your day over and over throughout the year. I got a special greeting from Greg, but while I'm on here, we're closed for Christmas and New Year's, so everybody enjoy your time together. I can't wait to see you all at the JWB Not Your Average Investor Summit. Go to jwbsummit.com to join us. And I'm just so grateful to be a part of this. When we start again on January 3rd, we're going to have the Fan Appreciation Show where we highlight our top 20 contributors here on the show. So look out for messages from Cody to be coming on the show. And thank you so much for the questions that you offer, making time out of your day to be here, and more than anything for the friendships that I have with each and every one of you. It really means a lot to me. So I wish you a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year. And I'm going to leave you here with a little message from GC, which I think is going to be awkward for me to now transition to putting on this video. Okay. All right, folks, here is GC's final message. Can't wait to see you all in the new year, and especially in February.
Morning, everybody. Sorry I can't be with you on the show today, but wanted to wish you and everybody in our community a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and I brought along some special friends with me.
Merry Christmas
from the Coens.
Don't be average.
Merry Christmas and
don't be average.
There you go. Don't be average, and Merry Christmas. See y'all next year.